Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Purple Breakdown. I'm your host, Alex. I'm so excited to be back here on another episode with you. It is Wednesday, a wonderful Wednesday. I hope everyone's enjoying their week. About to be Thursday, coming to the middle of the week, getting over the hump. Weekend's coming up here soon. Hope you all have a great, fun one. I will be a little stressed out tonight as Miami of Ohio takes on and plays SMU to try and make it into March Madness. So I'm hoping that they win and that Miami can make it in, but we'll see. That'll stress me out later tonight. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. So we'll get into that in just 1 second. If you like the content that you are about to hear and will hear, please consider subscribing, liking, and commenting. Remember, we have our session every single start of these longer form podcast episodes where if you comment, you get the shout out in it. So please, if you want your comment featured and the shout out, please consider commenting. And because one, you get the shout out. Two, it just makes my day because I love talking Ravens and I want to keep talking Ravens. One of the way I could do that is when you guys comment. So thank you so much. Let's just jump right into it with our first comment. So Flock Nation 410, you put out on the Danny Penter short saying he sucks. I understand. It's definitely not a high value pickup. There's not much value in him as this moment other than as a backup on the roster. I think he'll make the 53-man roster, but I think he is just going to be a backup. He's not really going to get any playing time. He's not meant to get playing time. The Ravens are still looking elsewhere for a starting center, and I'm hoping that they're looking at free agency for that, but they could very well be looking in the draft if Fano is still there. He's a large guy. I know he plays tackle, but he's a large guy with a larger wingspan that could be moved into guard or center if needed. So they may be looking at doing that. But David, you also had a little bit in here on this. You said, to my memory, Ravens never spend on the offense and protecting Lamar. I understand the defense needed to be fixed, but Ravens always spend big money on defense and bring in offensive players well past the prime players that used to be great. They always tried to address the offense in the draft. Am I not remembering any big free agency offensive signings of a great player in their prime? I'm hoping this new coaching staff can bring up all the players up to their best potential and it works out in a Super Bowl win. I 100% agree with that. The Ravens don't always go out and spend big on the offense. That's just not something that they've done. They've always tried to build it through the offense. I mean, you look at what the Ravens offense is, it's all been mostly primarily draft picks for the longest time now. And that's just how they operate. I mean, the biggest exception right now is Derrick Henry on that. And biggest exception, I think, all time for the Ravens on that. And I said it in my response to you would probably be Derek Mason from 2005 to 2010. I mean, he had been in the league for 7 years at that point. Is still the leading Ravens receiver of all time. And that may be their one time that they went big on offense. Right now they don't. I think this needs to be a time when they change that and address center, because I don't know if there's a deep enough draft later on for a center that with everything else that they need to address that would hit there, especially if they go guard right off the rip with Ioane. They got to be looking elsewhere too, and there's just a lot that needs to be hit. I still think the interior offensive line still needs to be hit. You still need to add another guard. You still need to add a center. And by no means am I not saying draft a center. I just want to be drafting a starting center in the draft this year right now. And they also still need to address the interior of the defensive line, which they haven't done yet, because there's still, even though news is getting better about Madubuike and his return, there's still some worry there, and so you still need to draft there as well. And then you went later on to later say, David, please, EDC, do not draft a wide receiver in first round. He stinks at picking wide receiver in the first round, except for Flowers. If a first-round wide receiver picked by EDC became the second coming to Justin Jefferson, Ravens still would not re-sign him after 5 years. Deal was up. EDC would let them walk because Ravens don't pay big money to help Lamar. If they got the second coming of Justin Jefferson at wide receiver, I would hope beyond all measures that they would pay the money to keep that receiver there at that point. But I understand where you're talking about this, and you look at EDC and who he's drafted. He's never drafted a true wide receiver one yet. You could argue Zay could be the exception to that, but even people would say that on most of the teams, Zay would be a wide receiver too. I think he's very shifty and is an amazing wide receiver. And I think on a lot of other teams, he could be a wide receiver one as well. But you look at what Rashad Bateman was supposed to come out and be, and he just never amounted to that. And Marquis was a wide receiver one on the Ravens, but he goes elsewhere and immediately becomes a wide receiver 2 and 3 in the depth chart. And just that's what the Ravens normally get when it comes to wide receiver. They've never drafted an all-around, all-time great wide receiver. That's not their thing. They draft amazing running backs. They get amazing running backs, but we'll see if that changes. I still don't expect them to go wide receiver in the first round right now. I think they're going to look elsewhere in free agency for that still, and it's something that needs to be addressed still in free agency. But we'll see how that turns out. I'd like to thank both Flock Nation 410 and David for the comments. If you'd like comments featured in the next and the shout out, just shout out to you too. If you would like to be featured, please consider commenting and I will make sure it gets in there. So this is a good transition in. The Ravens do have what they do still have a lot they need to address. They need to address wide receiver. They still need to address tight end. Another tight end. They still need to address center. They still need to address interior of the defensive line. And that's their biggest needs right now is wide receiver, tight end, center, and interior defensive line. And 2 of these today got addressed that the Ravens could be having something brewing and looking. One is pointing towards the draft O-line coach, Dwayne Ledford. He went to Penn State's pro day today, and there's only one man that he's going there to watch. You don't send the offensive line coach there to just go watch no one. He's going to go watch Ioane. That's his purpose there, and this could be a signal. It's not a guarantee, but it could be a signal that the Ravens are looking at Ioane in the first round and taking him, and is going to be up there higher on their board. I don't think the board is entirely created yet fully. I think they're still going to wait till after pro day, but I don't think it's a lock either. I mean, they're talking to everyone, and who we see they work out, and everyone that they bring in will give us a better picture of who they're looking at in the draft and how their board is playing out. The other news coming out of this is tight end David Njoku has reportedly had a visit with the Ravens as well, and this is big news. This could be the addressing that other tight end spot. Now, remember, they brought in Durham Smythe off the Bears, and he's a blocking tight end. So they've addressed that. Now, they needed a wide receiver that could stretch the field, and David Njoku has been one of the better tight ends in the league when his quarterback has thrown to him. He's never had a stable quarterback situation at the Browns. I mean, you look at what's happened with that Browns quarterback room. And then this past year, his yards went down, but that's because Fanning Jr. came in and he just took over everything. I mean, you watch what he did, and there's a reason that the Browns are going forward with him. But this could be big news for the Ravens. Now, it'd be interesting seeing Njoku come, and he's definitely in that boat of possibility, what we talked about with Juwan Jennings yesterday, where as free agency continues to go on, what his expected value was to be may go down. And so this may be news for the Ravens and signaling that the Ravens are looking, and maybe that they can possibly get him at a discount. Because remember, DaCosta doesn't want to go breaking the bank again. So maybe he goes there and he gets, the Ravens get him at a discount, and with a stable quarterback situation and the pairing up with Mark Andrews, 2 older veteran tight ends maybe would work out well. He's 6'4", 246 pounds. Now he is 29 years old, which makes me hesitant to give him an extremely long-term contract, especially with what we've seen over the past 2 years with his decrease in the workload and how many yards he gets per game and everything. So I'd be interested to see. By no means do I think it's the end of his career, but I'd be interesting to see how it turns out. It could be the signal, and if they take Njoku, that is the signal for the Ravens that they're not going to be drafting a tight end in the draft. That would be their starting 3 would be Andrews, Njoku, and Smythe. And so that would be those 3, but we'll see which way they go with that. The other news coming out about this is Ravens were trying to address wide receiver apparently, and we're talking with Marquis Brown. Now, Marquis Brown said that the Ravens were in the mix. He came out today and talked about it on another podcast channel on YouTube, and essentially said, like, look, the Ravens were in the running to the very end of until he got picked up by the Eagles, because he's going to the Philadelphia Eagles now, and I believe a 1-year, $6.5 million contract. And he essentially is just like, yeah, the Ravens were there. I have lots of good connections with them. I know everyone that's there, but I just left it up to my agent, and I know who really wants me. And it's like, oh, well, that hurts him saying that, because it's like he could have helped address the Ravens' issue, because Rashad Bateman isn't going anywhere. And so they needed somebody that could help take the pressure off Rashad Bateman and let Rashad Bateman have a resurgent year. And Marquis Brown could have been a guy to do that. You're not asking him to take on a massive role or anything like that, but I think he was looking at it and was, I wonder if the Ravens were offering less. They were probably offering less than what the Eagles offered in the end, and we're hoping to get him at a discount. And I'm sure he also has heard what DeAndre Hopkins has said and how he flamed the Ravens, and is wondering about what his workload would look like there. But this is going to be a different offense under Declan Doyle, so I don't think anyone could come in with just any assumption that they want. It is going to be a new offense and a new offensive scheme and system that Doyle will run. So that is some of the updates today. The last update I want to go into is Max Crosby on his podcast has finally come out and talked about his side of the Ravens interview. And I mean, he is not happy about it is the easiest way to put about it. He's not happy about how things went down with the Ravens. He used some expletives on his podcast when talking about it. He was not happy that when it began and he went and came here, he actually had to fly into Washington, D.C. to visit Baltimore and then had to get driven up. Was not happy about that. And then he didn't get to talk with Eric DeCosta, got to talk a little bit with Jesse Minter, and Jesse Minter was the one to break the news to him, like, the doctor saw something. I mean, he'd already been there for hours at this point, getting scans and MRIs and everything again to confirm. And Minter was the one that was like, so one of our doctors saw something apparently, and he was worried that they saw something that would require another surgery. And he called and was told, no, like, you're right on the right path that you want. And then the back out happened, and he has now said that he's ready to be a Raider again and play as long as a Raider. And that is a very simplified version of what he has said, but he was not happy with how the Ravens went down with this. Now, however, I've gone into this and said, and as much as he wants to say, yeah, he's ready for next year, he'll be playing next year, he's on track for next year. Lots of independent doctors now, not lots, I'll say, but the independent doctors that the Ravens reported to have used came out and said this, and that even a Cowboys team doctor came out and said this, that, like, the worry is not short term. The worry is long term. They all agree he'll be ready to go for next year and he's on the path of recovery. What they're worried about is that since he's damaged the meniscus, which protects the bones and the cartilage in between in your knee, that damage means that those could start rubbing together and the cartilage could start getting damaged, or the bone could started getting damaged, especially if he gets injured again there. And so it's not the short term, it's the long term that they're worried about. And so if this is true, the Ravens acted exactly as they should have. And I said this, and even Eric DeCosta's come out and said, and we've discussed this at length, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but it was the right move for the Ravens because they're keeping their first 2 round picks. They picked up Trey Hendrickson, and you're not going to take a long-term contract like that with the worry that that player may only be there 1 year or 2 years. And pundits are agreeing with the Ravens on this, saying, like, look, at the end of the day, they're in a better spot because they keep their 2 first-round picks and they get Hendrickson, which, yes, is Hendrickson a step down from Max Crosby? Sure. But he's still going to be a great pass rusher, help improve the defense, and will improve the Ravens exponentially. And some pundits and analysts are putting it as the second best move of free agency at this point already. So the Ravens are in a better spot because of this, and they'll be moving forward well with Hendrickson and will perform well because of it. Well, at least hopefully on the edge, they will perform well and better because of it. I still think they need to address the interior defensive line to help this, especially with the worry around Madubuike there. Now, some are wondering that possibly the Ravens may go just another depth piece here, or, well, not depth piece, but an older experienced player to come in. When looking at it, Calais Campbell is still on the sheet there, and it could be a possible pickup for the Ravens on the defensive line. And now there's no guarantee he comes back this next year to play, but the Ravens could possibly get him at a cheaper amount. However, we'll see on that. I think also there's been discussion that the Ravens could still add at edge and continue to add on there, especially on the other side. And there are still some guys that are out there for the Ravens that they could look at that we talked about before. Jadeveon Clowney is still out there. Joey Bosa is still out there. Cameron Jordan is still out there. So there's still some edge pieces that the Ravens could possibly target in free agency if they so wished and chose to do so as well. It would be interesting seeing Cameron Jordan or Jadeveon Clowney coming to the Ravens. I really believe be interesting seeing Jadeveon Clowney come back. Well, I would also love seeing Joey Bosa there, but I don't know if the Ravens, his expected market value, at least on Spotrac, is $13.7 million. I don't know if the Ravens are willing to spend that right now, especially since they still need to go get a center. And it's the one time I really hope that they spend bigger on center in free agency and go after Ethan Pokic off the Browns and bring him in. And that's probably the best option at this point. But if they're going to do that, they're probably going to wait for the June 1st deadline and get him then. But we'll see how that turns around. So that is all the news I have for today. I know it was a quick episode, but I hope you all enjoyed it and learned a little bit today. I can't wait to make the next one with you guys. And if you enjoy the content that you're hearing, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and commenting. Same on Spotify. Follow, review, leave a comment. Again, we do our segment at the beginning of every long form episode where I take those comments from the previous episodes and give the shout outs here. So if you want that, please comment. Thank you all so much for joining in and listening. Go Red Hawks tonight. I'm going to knock on wood right now just to make sure real quick that I don't jinx them. But have a great day. I can't wait to see you all tomorrow and hope some more news comes out for the Ravens tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you all later.